probably upwards of 10,000 online lessons, right? So I just saw all these pros, and I started to realize over the years that they're basically doing the same handful of things the exact same. And I took 50 major winners from the year 2000 and on, and I measured their swings and these things that I saw them doing over and over again. And these were the things that I saw recreational players not doing. So these were the major differences between great players and players that were struggling a little bit. And one of the things I came up with, which is one of the 5 real fundamentals of the golf swing, is what I call top speed lag. And what this means is when the left arm is parallel to the ground in the downswing, this club should be at about a 65-degree angle or tighter than that. Now, this would be 90 degrees, club straight up and down. This would be 0 degrees, which would be impossible unless you have super flexible wrist. This would be 45, so 65 would be here. I want to be at least at this angle or tighter. And that's what I saw with the best players in the world. And that's what I saw with even best recreational players. You take the best player at your club, you videotape his swing, I guarantee you he's hitting an angle just like that. Now, as you come on down, when you release this club, so when does the club split the forearms? So here I'd still have lag. When I release it, or the club splitting my forearms here, the pros release this angle at about 40 degrees in front. That's what I call the straight line release. And the reason that's another fundamental, those are 2 of the fundamentals of the 5 that the pros do that recreational golfers don't. Why are those important? Why do we even care if we hit those angles? Well, the reason is that's telling me that we're moving the club efficiently, that we can let this club's momentum work for us and get some pretty good distance without having to feel like we swing really hard. If we do the opposite of that and we start to cast, now we're muscling it. It's all hands and arms, and there's no way, no matter how much you practice, to get the face to square up consistently or to get your divots to be consistent unless we have that lag and then we release it out in front. Now, one final little pro tip that you may not have seen before, when I measure those pros, another great way, a great checkpoint, this is probably the best of the best. If you have a decent high speed setting on your camera, this is a good one to check. When the club is in the middle of your stance, I want to see my club parallel, or excuse me, when your ball's in the middle of your stance, I want to see my club parallel with the ground when my hands are roughly in front of my right thigh. Most players that I see, the club is way down there. Now, why is it so daggone hard? Let's get to that secret that I hinted at earlier. It has more to do with momentum than it does with the angle of the club. You see, if I start rushing my downswing, which I see a lot of players do, and I go really hard from the top, and you can do this with one hand. Just grab the club with one hand anywhere comfortable, and I want you to swing as hard as you can from the top, or jerk down on the club as fast as you can as you start the downswing. And all of a sudden, what's happened, it gets a little lag at the start, and then all of a sudden, you can't keep that acceleration up. So I'm accelerating, and as you accelerate, the club wants to lag behind. But you can't keep accelerating at that same rate. It's just impossible. You're not strong enough. No one's strong enough to do it. So the hands naturally start to slow down, and when that happens, the club overtakes the hands, and it ends up being a flip. Now, the opposite of this would be take that same thing. Let's go ahead and start down really slow, and then let's feel like we go really quickly through impact. So I'm going to really exaggerate so you could feel it. Right? It'd be something like that. So I went slow, 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 and then as I start to accelerate with the hands, you notice how this club wanted to kick back that way. So if you're struggling, you're trying as hard as you can, and you want the club to look like this, but you look at it on camera and it looks like that, the reason is you're accelerating too hard from the top, and the club is always going to overtake the hands. You'd have to have the strength of 10 people to be able to overcome the amount of force that gets built up in this club if you jerk it from the top. So the real key here is to start out very slow in the downswing and then feel as though we're accelerating all the way through contact. Now, in reality, it's a little bit different. We're not going to get into the true biomechanics of this, but if you have the feeling that I'm going to teach you here, you will get more lag. So what I want you to feel here is we're going to go a little half back swing, and I want you to almost feel like the club falls down until my hands get in front of my right thigh. Then from there, I'm going to really accelerate through to a full finish. So it's going to look something like this. Right? So I'm going really slow, right? And then I'm speeding up through contact. So slow, 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 and then I speed up. What it feels like to me is the club wants to do this through contact. It wants to lag behind, and I feel like the club's almost, the face is almost just got a lot of force built up in it, and it's just wanting to stay really stable because it's way behind my hands. So do about 5 or 10 of those really slow, then accelerating through, If you videotape yourself as you're doing that, you're going to notice that the club looks much more like this than you're used to, especially if you're usually like that. So we're going to do those 5 swings, and we're going to gradually build it higher and higher, and I'm going to add a couple more tips in. Number 1 would be, as I swing back and I'm going a little farther, I don't want to pick this club up. There's a natural reaction when you pick the club up to immediately want to start throwing it and casting it. As we do this little drill, nice and wide as you're going back, don't feel like you rush it. Give yourself a time to make a few mistakes on it. You'll get the hang of it if you stick with it. Don't feel the pressure to get it on the very first try. Just let it go nice and wide, smooth, and then feel like you're accelerating through contact. So just like this. Now we can really see that club almost wants to go that way. So it's wide, it sets late, and then it releases out in front. You can almost feel that same thing with one hand like that. As I go farther and farther back again, another mistake that I see people do is they fall on the back foot, and then they can't even reach the ball without casting it and flipping it. So what I want you to feel like you do is let your right knee, as you're coming through contact, as those hands are accelerating on through, feel like your right knee comes forward and almost kisses your left knee. That's going to force you to get to your left side. It's going to force you to finish really strong through there and finish your swing so that you don't fall on your back foot. So we're going to go ahead and try that out. Another little half swing, nice and wide, really slow. Let the knee come on through. And that's going to, if you look at that on video, you're going to see right away that club's got a lot more lag and it's releasing out in front. So gradually build through that. Once you've done a good 15, 20 reps and you've built from very small and slow at the bottom to a little bit longer and a little bit longer until you're all the way up to a full swing, then we're going to introduce the golf ball. Again, the same sensation should be there. Really wide on the back swing, very slow to start the down swing, and then I'm going to feel like my club is lagging way behind as I accelerate through contact. And remember, let that knee come forward so that we can finish the swing. We don't fall back on that right foot, in which case we'd have to cast. All right, so let's go ahead and try it again here. There we go. And I really felt that club wanting to lay back, and you can see my distance went up, had a few more practice swings, got a little bit looser, but 204 yards with a 7-iron, that's probably about as far as I've ever hit one on this machine. So doing those drills, it's even great to do them myself because it just makes you so solid through contact, the ball just explodes off the face. Now, like I mentioned before, it's that first move down that's really the culprit for most players. And it's not just the tempo like we talked about in this video, there's actually a feeling that you have. And if you're doing this feeling, then your club is not only gonna start to rush and cast, it's gonna get steep. Now, if you can get rid of that feeling and learn the correct feeling, then your club is not only gonna have more lag, it's also gonna shallow out in the downswing and get flatter like this. So if I do it the wrong way, I'm rushing and I'm steep. If I learn the right way that I'm about to show you, you smooth it out and shallow. I'm gonna play a preview of a great video that walks you through exactly how to do that, smooth out that transition, tons more lag, shallow the club out, all those things that we see every great player doing. Now I'm gonna play a preview of that. Just go ahead and click the card that pops up on your screen. If you don't see one of those cards, don't worry, just go down to the link below in the description. Click there, you'll get instant access to this video. I can't wait to share it with you. Let's smooth out that transition, add it to what we did here today, and I can't wait to hear about what fantastic golf you've been playing. Let's go and get started. The bottom line is that if you pull this club down to ring that bell or pull the hands more from the inside, what's going to happen is you start to rush your downswing from that pulling, and that can throw off your sequence. And we all know that once your sequence gets off, that is going to be the root cause of all your problems. Now, maybe you're being outdriven way too often, or you're terribly inconsistent with your strikes. Some of your shots are heavy, some of them are thin, some of them are off the toe, and then the next ones are way off the heel. Now you end up way over in the trees, you're in the tall grass, or maybe even the hazards all day long, and it really comes down to this. Clay, how in the heck do we fix it? Well, there's some good news. Well, there's only 2 things that you need to learn. First, you need to learn to shallow the club rather than pulling the hands down and getting the shaft in this steep position. You see, there's another way that the pros do this, and once you start to get that club on this shallower plane, more from the inside, then you pair that up with the right way to square the club face. And once you put these 2 things together, everything starts to fit in your swing. Now your buddies will start to get a little bit jealous because you'll start hitting solid, longer drives, time after time, and round after round. Now I'm going to teach you this right now on what I call the E-slot technique. Let's walk through exactly how to do it. So here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and take a swing to the top and get in a really good position. I want you to feel like your weight is mostly shifted to your right side and that your hips and shoulders are nice and free. I don't want to be locked up here. I want my knees to move, my hips to move. And that's going to allow me to swing my shoulders very nicely. Now, one thing that most people get wrong when they swing to the top is they don't get this tilt away from the target. So instead of being straight up and down or leaning to the left, I want to be slightly tilted away in what I call the stable fluid spine in my top speed golf system. Okay, so now that you're at this great position at the top of the swing, what I want you to do is instead of pulling those arms straight down or ringing the bell, that's going to get the club shaft steep and get this elbow kind of flapping behind your body. I want you to do something very specific. I want you to take the tip of your elbow and move it in a specific way. Now, not this small bone on the inside of your elbow, but I want it to be right here at the tip, and here's what I want you to do.